Our beloved 8% HardAF Seltzer is now live in Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Texas, Ohio, Montana, Idaho, Oregon, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Illinois. Go to HardAFSeltzer.com today. Click on the store locator and enter your city or zip to find the closest location nearest you.
We are gold for energy. Send it.
Incoming!
Put the money in the bag, man.
As I said, your paycheck is your thank you.
What's going on back there? This is awesome! Welcome to Earth! No. Who's flying the plane? Get cockpit. Go. God.
Black Rifle Energy, dropping near you.
Welcome to Drinkin Bros, presented by OmahaSteaks.com. Yeah, welcome to Drinkin Bros, kids. Got one of our favorites back on the show today. Mr. Jack Carr joins us. My God, man, you're the new Taylor Sheridan.
Oh man, well hey, it's been busy. I'll tell you that. It's been busy. So lucky to have an amazing team. I just got here to Paris a little while ago. Was in Morocco finishing up True Believer. We filmed over in Casablanca, Tangier, and Marrakesh, Atlas Mountains, and it's looking good. It is looking good. But just wrapped that thing up. That's 7 months of filming right there, and we went out there 5 times, I think, back and forth.
Holy
we also hit
cow.
South Africa and Toronto, but everybody else is there the whole time. You know, Chris is flying back and forth, but everybody else, that core crew, is essentially 7 months on the road between South Africa, Morocco, and Toronto, and they're putting in some hours. It's just incredible. Every time I go on set, I always remember just how similar it is to a military operation, with everyone in their departments bringing their A game, doing the best they possibly can, and it's looking really good. So probably comes out next summer. I'm not sure, but now we go into post-production and take all the ingredients and make the meal. They're all there, and then you got to work them into that meal to tell that story. So going into post-production right now.
God bless it, Jack. I don't know how you do it, man. Even Hollywood friends of mine are asking to give resumes to you as actors. Everybody wants to be on your shows. It really is kind of you and Taylor Sheridan right now at this moment, who is pumping out this many shows, and it's unbelievably impressive to see. And I wonder how exhausted you are, because as you're flying all over the world, you still have to write books in the background, and I don't think people understand that.
Yeah, that's why this book is a little late. It was supposed to come out in June. Now it's coming out in October. One is because of all the other things that I'm juggling, but 2 is because this book, Cry Havoc, took so much longer to research, because I went into it thinking I knew a lot about Vietnam, and it's a fictional narrative. It takes place in 1968, the bloodiest year of the war. Focuses on Mac V. Sog, Tom Reese specifically, the father of my protagonist, going into Laos and then gets wrapped up in this global conspiracy. But that took a lot more time, energy, and effort than I anticipated, because there was so much I didn't know about Vietnam. And then 2, every character, every sentence had to be written through the lens of 1968. So not just throwing on Creedence Clearwater Revival, saying it's 1968 and calling it a day. No, every single character only had their life experience up until 1968 to bring to a problem set, to inform their perspective. And that took a lot more time than I thought. So that took a long time. And then we have Dark Wolf coming out too, and it's out right now. The season finale comes out on Wednesday. So now all 7 episodes will be out there, and people can binge them if they would like. So we finished that one last October, and that went into post-production right away. And that thing turned out so much better than I thought that it ever could. And that's because of everybody that's on this team that's just crushing it. But like you said, people want to be part of this show now because the word has gotten out. It's really Chris Pratt, Antoine Fuqua, David DiGilio, who's the showrunner, which in series television is like the single point of contact because you have so many different directors working on every episode. So he's like in charge of the whole thing. And man, they just take care of people. And during this, let's say 7 months, 8 months of filming, people are going to get divorced. People are going to have kids. People are going to get married. People are going to lose loved ones. Life is going to happen. And they just take care of everybody. So it really has become a family. Everyone's so close. And now people have kind of heard that through the grapevine in Hollywood. And so now we're getting all these people that want to be a part of our show. One, because, yeah, they love it, but also because they've heard about how we take care of everyone. And it's really, really special, really cool to be a part of.
Yeah, and again, not to keep comparing you to Taylor Sheridan, but it's the same vibe with him, where he takes care of his own, he takes care of his crew, takes care of his actors, and they're loyal, and they want to keep working for years and years and years with the same person. And I'm hearing the same things about you. Now, obviously, Dark Wolf just came out on Amazon. It was instantly number 2 in the entire world streaming on the platform. It feels like all of this just keeps growing and growing and growing. And it's unbelievably impressive. Dan, you've seen it all the way up until this point. And
well, I mean, we were talking about this earlier on Citizen, but when you have a great story like that and all of these really well-developed characters, especially, and another thing we talked about earlier is with the Ben character, the book version versus what Taylor Kitsch was able to bring to life on screen. I compared it to Aaron Paul with Jesse Pinkman, because the book is different, but you get a character like that, and then you get a performance like that wedged into it, and you're like, okay, well, you've got to give people more of this. Obviously, it's like when you're watching Top Chef or something, and the judge is like, I would have liked a little bit more of that sauce. You know what I mean? And it would have made the meal perfect. Well, when you're doing world building and development with prequels and spinoffs and all this stuff, it just adds so much more richness to the character, and people demand it. Because Taylor Kitsch is awesome.
He's a fantastic actor.
He's done this like shoot 'em up style and thriller style stuff before. That movie Savages he did with Aaron Taylor Johnson was fucking great. Obviously, season 1, The Terminal List.
True Detective season 2.
True Detective season 2.
Guys, I got to go Friday Night Lights. That's one of my all-time faves.
Well, he also played. I'm talking about military stuff specifically, not just him as an. Obviously, he's a great actor, but the other one was what the fuck? The Mitch Rapp.
American Assassin.
American Assassin. Yeah, he played a great. I mean, he's just fucking good.
Yeah, and the reason I say that's with Friday Night Lights is they're doing a reboot of it right now, and they asked if he wanted to come back to it, and he said, no, I love what I'm working on right now, and I love working with Jack and those guys. Like, no offense, but I have zero desire to leave the world that I'm already in right now to go and revisit something I did 20 years ago, and it speaks obviously to what you said earlier about the community that you've built and the cast and the crew and all that other stuff. So, yeah, they're not going anywhere anytime soon. Now, for you, man, let's start with the book. So you got the book coming out in October. How much has it slowed down? Because as busy we get with the hard seltzer and the podcast and all that other stuff, and I'm not flying all over the goddamn world. I'm flying in the United States, but I'm not flying all over the world like you are. It gets harder and harder and harder to write a book. A book is still a gigantic mountain to climb. I feel like a television script is a little easier, but a book, you have to get right. And like you were saying, going back to the 60s, if you're writing something about the 60s, which ironically I just finished, there is so much research that goes into it because you can't screw it up. So what's the research process like now, and then writing it on top of it, and then taking all these phone calls for the 19 series you have?
Yeah, it's insane, and I got to get a little better at it. It's something I need to work at, getting more efficient, putting some processes in place, some blockers in place, that sort of a thing, so I can have time to write. And this one just took so much longer than I thought, but yeah, I couldn't be more happy with how it came out. But yeah, doing all these things certainly is something. The scripts, Like those are so different because it really is a team effort, regardless of who's like this one that's coming out on Wednesday. Like I wrote it with David DiGilio, the showrunner. So our names are on there as the writers, but really it is such a team effort because you get the pitch ready to go. And that's me, David DiGilio, Max Adams, Jared Shaw, and then get the pitch ready. Amazon green lights it. Then you get a writer's room together. And now it really becomes a group effort because now the script that or the outline that you came up with, the pitch you came up with, now you break it out into these different episodes, assign it to a writer, but you're all working on it together. And not only are you working on it, you're sending it up to Chris Pratt, Antoine Fuqua, then you're sending it all the way to the top of Amazon, back down with notes. You're addressing those notes. So many people are giving ideas. It is a 100% team effort type of a thing. And there's constraints in place, meaning in this case, there are 7 episodes. So that's essentially 7 hours. And each script has to be an hour each. Each script has to have a story arc. And then there has to be an overarching story arc over all of those hours together. But you have actor availability to consider. You have budgets to consider, locations to consider, all of these different things that you consider. Now with the book, there's no one helping me. It is, if people hate it, it's all on me. If people love it, same way. But it does go to an editor in New York, and she'll send back questions. And all of the questions from my books have been along the lines of, "Hey, explain the like X975 Bravo for someone who didn't spend 20 years in the military." Like those are the types of questions. Or because I've been so deeply involved in it, I think a twist at the end is going to be so obvious if I give a hint. But she's looking at it now as a first-time reader and saying, "Okay, you need to drop a couple more crumbs in to set that up." Okay, got it. So those are the types of things that I get from New York, from my editor and publisher, Emily Bessler, who's amazing. But they're not huge sweeping changes, not rewrite this chapter, take this out, do that. There are minor tweaks like that definitely elevate the story and are so necessary, but way different than the script. So it's I just feel so fortunate to be able to do both. And hopefully now one's making me better at the other and vice versa.
Yeah. And do you get a chance to read your reviews? The reviews have always made me laugh, and I wonder if people read them. I don't really read comments on things. Do you read them? Because they were all lights out. Even Roger Ebert's, who I didn't know was still alive, Bob. Didn't he get like half of his face chopped off or something like that?
He's been dead for years.
Yeah. Has he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but he has a website that's still...
Oh, so they run it underneath his name?
It's AI or something, probably.
Is it really?
No,
No,
it's probably just some group.
I would love it if it was.
Yeah. Look, they use his IP. They use his IP to review movies.
The reviews have been great, though. I mean, it's what are you going to say?
Well, there was one that I wanted to ask about. Variety. Variety is the Hollywood's, rag, and God damn it, I hate them so much because it's all just horrific bullshit. If you don't mind, if I can just read this line to you here because it's so fucking funny to me. Terminalist prequel Dark Wolf is all macho posturing and American aggression. I laughed my ass off. I was like, what do you expect from something military? Like, what were you hoping for? Something super feminine and looking at the more sensitive side. No, that's not what it is. Like, when you write something like that and that's the title of your article, what the fuck is going on?
Right. But just like with the first Terminalist, there were some great ones for Terminalist. And by great, I mean like horrible reviews from the Daily Beast and a bunch of other ones. And I went on Tucker and actually read them and gave a little kind of funny comment after reading each one. But it's like, in this case, I think it's like that person probably loves a show like The Summer I Turned Pretty or something like that. Like It's probably their kind of show. This is probably, in general, not their kind of show, but it seems like that it's almost like they sent the wrong person to review. Like, you're going to hate it. It's not your type of thing, but you're assigned it. I'm going to go watch this and give it a bad review. It's not for you.
Yeah.
Like this, we did not make this with you in mind, Variety reviewer. We know you're going to hate it, and that's okay. And if anybody sees that, if anyone happens to read Variety that is kind of between New York and Los Angeles, it's probably just going to make them want to watch the show. Oh, Variety hated it? Awesome. It says it's American, macho, whatever. Like, there was one from the first season. It said, the Terminalist is a Don't Tread on Me flag meets SEAL team with a country music ballad or something along those lines, which just makes makes people want to watch it even more. So it was I think for a while it was like 97% Rotten Tomatoes, and I think the reviewers were like in the 30s and 40s from critics, and then I think it settled around 95 and 94 time. But that's pretty good for Rotten Tomatoes for a audience review. And then to see the disparity between that and critics, I think it was another talking point. It was a great thing to be able to talk about, to show how disconnected some of those reviewers are from all of these people who are loving this show. So, and then the numbers spoke for themselves, and Amazon will never share those numbers with us, but we know that they are very good because we have a spinoff and another season that we just finished, and probably more in the works. You know, it can always go derail at any point, but it's looking good for the future right now anyway. But those numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
And they know that there's an underserved audience out there. We call it throwback action, throwback television, Cinevision, team television, because the best idea wins. There's no egos involved. It's all about making the best show we possibly can for that person who's going to spend time with us that they're never going to get back at the end of a hard day when they crack that beer and put their feet up and turn this thing on. So that's who's in mind when we make this thing.
I wonder if those
particularly
Muppets know.
veterans, law enforcement, firefighters, guys that are working hard and that are home and gonna trust us with that time. So we want to get those details right, so they don't get pulled out of the storyline because we mess something detail oriented up. So we try to focus on those things so they go along with this completely fictional narrative and just enjoy it for a good story.
Yeah, I wonder if the people that write those reviews know that they're just doing free advertising for you.
Her name is Allison Herman, and as soon as you hear it, you know, we know who this person is.
Yeah.
And
but I do.
To Jack, to your point, it's not for her. Like this, I'm sorry, it's not.
Well, I do wonder though if they know that they're just like, so because sometimes it's like with political stuff, someone will write like, oh, this person's doing this and doing that, and can you believe this is happening? It's like, yeah, it's exactly what I voted for. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
It's like, now I'm going to vote even harder.
Harder after that. And when you see shit like this, like, you know, she was talking about grimly grumbling about the bureaucrats and the deep state. And you're like, all right, cool, man. I already know exactly who you are. And yeah, The Summer I Turned Pretty is probably more her speed. By the way, that's number one on Amazon. Yes. And it's number one on Amazon. You're number two.
Above it for a little bit.
Yep.
Which is crazy. We bumped above it for a little bit. It's been going back and forth, which is crazy because they have so many more hours to watch, and we were dropping one a week, so we had way few. So anyway, it was really cool to be back and forth with that show that people love, and I haven't seen it, but I'm sure it's great for its audience. So it's cool to be up there. And then Terminalist popped up back into the top 5. So we were at number 1 and number 4 for a bit last week. So having Dark Wolf at number 1, Terminalist at number 4, that was pretty cool to see too.
It is, and you know, there's a couple different factors, I think, and I agree with you. There is space for all this to exist. The Summer I Turned Pretty, your show, there's space for everything out there to exist. One thing that I think that happened, this is just a guess, and I want to ask you about it, because the reviews were so positive for this new season, and everybody was looking forward to coming back. Obviously, that's going to bump the old season back into the ratings because you're drawing in new people. The other big factor, I think, for you personally and your shows, specifically being on Amazon, is
the books.
The books, one, but two, the NFL came in, and I saw a ton of advertisements for your show during the NFL Thursday night game, and that's massive because I know those ratings at least. Those are coming in right around 23, 24 million, and all you're seeing is Terminalist, and it's awesome to see, man. Did you know in advance that they were going to get the NFL?
Oh yeah. I'm part of as an executive producer. I'm part of every facet of this. I'm always learning, but this time that was a major push to incorporate the NFL into this and to have Taylor and Pratt get out there. They did a reading, like a little ad thing for it too, kind of to kick off a little hype type thing. So that was cool, and so that was part of it from the very beginning. Same thing with UFC. So to see like the cross tomahawks on the UFC, and then to go out there, Taylor and I went out there with LaMonica Garrett, and they're in the front row having a blast, and it was just so cool to see that. And we did it with Terminalist also. And that was on the mat. Pratt has it in his office, the Terminalist from the mat with all the blood splatter all over it. That's framed in his office at home. So that was cool. I got a piece of the mat too. It's framed up there in my podcast studio off to the side. But it's pretty cool. But Friday night, or the NFL was definitely a strategic move to try to let people know that watch football, which are probably our audience, to that Terminalist exists and it's out there essentially for them.
It is, and it's a perfect marriage in my opinion, because yes, both audiences, NFL and everything you write, do go hand in hand. Now, on the back end, I want to go back to what Dan said about the books. What are the book sales like in your residuals?
Well, you must see like a fucking anytime something new comes out or an ad campaign, like either the content itself or part of the ad campaign or pressers, you've got to see like a surge in the book sales. That usually happens, right?
Yeah, it's on a upward trajectory, I would say. So, I can't like tie it. It's hard to tie directly, but in general, from the very beginning, it's been on an upward trajectory. And part of doing the show and optioning it before it even hit shelves. So Pratt wanted it in January of 2018. The book came out in March, and my buddy Jared Shaw, the Seal buddy, gave it to Chris in December of 2017. Chris read it and then called the first week in 2018, and wanted to option it. That's part of that is that it's a supporting effort, essentially, to the main effort, which for me are the books. And for whatever reason, television, film, builds your audience, builds your readership, listenership now, adds legitimacy to what you've done, because Hollywood's willing to invest such vast sums of money in it and star power in it, time, energy, and effort in it. So it's all part of this broader mosaic to build a readership, which is probably more important now for an author than at any other time, because there are so many more distractions than there were in 1975, 85, 95, even 2005. You are competing with every single social media app, which are essentially designed to keep you from reading. And you're competing with every single television show or movie that is available any time that you want to watch them. And all of these things you carry around in your pocket at any given moment. So as an author, you're competing with all of those things. So I feel like today you have to do a lot more as an author. And one of those things is the shows. Another one is podcasts. Another one is merch, socials, blog, all of those things. Any way you can add value to someone's life, or make them aware that, hey, these books exist, and I saw this social media post, or I read this blog by this guy, or an op-ed by this guy, I'm going to check out the book. Like, you have to double down on those things today as an author, where maybe, let's say in 1985 you have a book, your publisher puts an ad in the New York Times, and you do one morning show, and you're done. You're back to writing the next book. Now, promotion is essentially a year-long thing if you want to have the same type of readership that those guys had in the 80s. So it's a lot more work today, I would say.
Yeah, I'm happy you brought that up, because we leave the studio doors open here for listeners to come in and watch live shows. A lot of them want to be authors, in particular you. That is what we're hearing over and over. I want to be the next Jack Carr. I know you guys are friends with Jack. What's the process? Everything else. You literally just described it to a T, and I've said the same thing. It is no longer just good enough to write a good book. You have to have social media and everything else behind it, doing podcasts and getting your work out there, because nobody else is going to do that for you. A publisher isn't going to do that for you anymore. And, I remember way back in the day when you were starting, obviously years and years ago, to where it is now. And it's real easy for somebody to see the success now and say, okay, cool, now I want to do this. And it was like, man, I don't really understand. Jack was, just stuck in a back room, just doing this at nights over and over and over again. And then years and years later, it hit. It's not an overnight success thing. What year did you get started? And more in particular, when you sat down and wrote that first page of any book, your very first book, did you think any of this would ever happen in a million years?
Well, I did, and I think that comes from being a child of the 80s and kind of knowing what you wanted to do early. So I knew I was going to be a SEAL. First I knew I was going to serve, and then at 7, I found out what SEALs were. So I knew I was going to be a SEAL. And then I'm reading at age
7
10,
years
11,
old?
12, 13, 14, formative years. I'm reading these books by guys like David Morrell, Nelson DeMille, AJ Quinnell, J.C. Pollock, Mark Olden, Tom Clancy, all these guys who are essentially my professors in the art of storytelling, but who have protagonists with backgrounds that I want in real life one day. But what I'm really doing is teaching myself to write through reading from the fan perspective. Let's say like a Quentin Tarantino never goes to film school, but guess what? He is a master of film and the history of cinema. because he comes to it from the fan perspective. And so there's that passion there. And same thing with me. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And along the way, if anybody ever said, hey, do you know how hard it is to be a SEAL? Do you know how many people quit? Do you know how hard it is to be an author or get something published or hit the New York Times list or get a show made? I just took that as fuel because somebody did those things. Somebody made it through Buds. Somebody is an author. Somebody's at the top of that New York Times list. Somebody got something adapted. Why not me? I'm at least going to give it a shot. That's what all these people who sacrificed so much from the inception of this country up until today allowed me to be able to pursue these dreams, both in the military and as an author. So I start writing the book about a year and a half before I get out of the military, when I drop my papers to get out and go in another pile, which means that just my job becomes to get out of this gigantic bureaucracy. I'm not taking guys down range to Iraq and Afghanistan like I had for the previous X number of years, whatever. And so I start writing. And I write that first sentence in December of 2014. And as soon as I write that first sentence, and what I did first is I wrote about 6, 7, 8, 9 different ideas down on pieces of paper, 1-page executive summaries, spread them all out, and said, which one do I need to start with? And I wanted to start with Savage Son, which is my third book, because back in 6th grade, I read The Most Dangerous Game by Richard Connell, which is a short story written, or novella written in the early 1920s. And I told myself back in 6th grade at 11 years old that one day I'd write a novel that paid tribute to that short story. And that's Savage Son, third book. I wanted to start there, but I knew that the characters weren't yet developed to a place where I could explore the theme of that book, which is the dark side of man through the dynamic of hunter and hunted. I knew that I had to start with the most visceral, hard-hitting, violent book out of the gate, and that was The Terminal List. And so started writing that one, wrote the first sentence, and I stopped and said, okay, who is going to star in this? Because I've written a sentence. And I thought, well, I just saw Zero Dark 30, and I saw Chris Pratt transform himself from Andy Dwyer on Parks and Rec into a Navy SEAL. Chris Pratt will star in this. He needs to do it for his career. And of course, this is before A-list stardom, before Jurassic World, and before Guardians of the Galaxy. But I said, Chris Pratt will star in this. And I have no connection to Hollywood, no connection to publishing. I'm just writing. And another important thing is I'm not worried about any of the social stuff. I never had a Facebook. I never had any social media. It's not my thing. And I just focused on the book. I knew that maybe a website would be important later on, but I was focused on the book. And then as I crept up towards publication, I realized you have to do all these other things. The landscape had changed. Looked at it like I looked at the battlefield in Iraq and Afghanistan, meaning how's the enemy going to adapt to me? How am I going to adapt to that enemy? How can I capitalize on momentum or gaps in the enemy's defenses? And I looked at publishing that same way. But point being, wrote those first sentences in December of 2014, decided Chris Pratt would star, decided Antoine Fuqua would direct, and then I just kept writing. And then all those years later, my buddy Jared Shaw calls me out of the blue and says he wants to thank me for something I did for him in the SEAL teams. And I didn't remember what it was, but as he was getting out, I'm the only one that sat him down in my office, talked about getting out of the military, introduced him to people in the private sector, followed up with them. So he calls me 5 years later to thank me and tell me that he heard I wrote a book and that he'd like to give it to a friend of his. And I said, yeah, it comes out in a few months. I have a galley copy, like a rough draft essentially here. Who can I send it to? And he said, Chris Pratt. So that's how things came full circle on that front.
That's crazy, because isn't there an infamous picture of Chris reading it like on a plane or something like that? And that's kind of how it all kicked off?
I think he's going to he's going to a premiere in the UK, I think, and one of his movies, and he's reading it for the first time. And Jared snapped the picture because he's on the plane with him. And next thing you know, I'm talking to him about option in the book. So it's crazy how things worked out.
I've never asked you this before, but I've had this conversation with a number of my author friends, especially people that write, exclusively novels, but thriller style stuff. Were there quotes, like things you had your characters say that are part of their core identity that the first time you put it on paper, it just sent a chill up your spine? It's like
That's a great question.
You know what I mean? Because I've talked to Greg Hurwitz, a mutual friend of ours, and about this because he writes Orphan X. He's great. Super sharp dude. But there's a couple of like very meaningful statements that the character will make. Sometimes it's something they say often, right? Like one of them I think of is the statement that Reese makes over the comms when he's running from the feds about perfecting violence and stuff like that. But every one of these characters you see in these thriller styles things have something they say like that at some point, or maybe multiple things. Was there one in particular that like the first time you wrote it down, you typed it or whatever, and then you read it back and you're like, oh shit, that's gonna be fucking cool?
Yeah, it happens every book. And that one you just mentioned, that was not who wrote that. That was for the TV show.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that was Army Ranger Max Adams wrote that scene about perfecting violence. And that was a little nod to First Blood in that one, which was so influential to all of us that are in film and making these shows in particular. So that was Max Adams, awesome guy. But yeah, there is something in every book, and there are passages in every book, and there are chapters in every book where I get emotional. And I'm thinking, oh wow, okay, if I'm getting emotional writing this and then rereading it and editing it, that's a good sign. If that doesn't happen for a book, maybe I need to kind of reevaluate a few things or really dive back into it or focus a little more or something. But it hasn't happened yet. Every single book, there are multiple places where I get emotional writing and then rereading and editing it. But in that first one stands out to me. I got to the end, and the end's a little different in the novel. But this was revenge without constraint. That was a little yellow sticky that I had on my computer as I wrote to guide the writing process. That was my theme. And I get to the end, and the spoiler alert, everybody can plug their ears if they haven't read the book or care or whatever. But James Reese goes to this island and goes into this mansion, and there's the Secretary of Defense, and there's this guy, Steve Horn, and there's this other guy in there, and they have Katie Burnett, who is a journalist and taken hostage. Ben Edwards is there, and he's the friend who is not really a friend, and they have debt cord around Katie Burnett's neck, and they say, if you kill me, my hand comes off this button, her head blows off. And Reese is there in the room dripping wet because he's come in out of the ocean, then through the water, killed a bunch of dudes outside, and then he kills everybody. And right before I finish that chapter, he shoots Ben, and his finger comes off the button. Now it's a new chapter. And so now her head doesn't explode. And so they run through the house. It's on, they blow it up, whatever, get out of there, get to this plane that comes in to rescue them. And he gets her on board. She's still in a state of shock from all of this. And then he said, she snaps out of it. And she says, how did you know that when Ben's finger comes off the button, my head wouldn't explode? And all he says is, I didn't. Closes the door, turns, and runs towards the marina.
Yeah.
And when I wrote that, I was like, oh, that. And guys loved that one. Girls, when they read that one, they were like, like they did not like that very much. The dudes loved it. And so yeah, that was a cool one. When I wrote that, I'm like, that encapsulates it. But then I had to figure out how am I going to deal with this moving forward? Like, did he really think the head was going to explode? And I didn't have a good answer at the end of that one. So then I go into True Believer. Katie's not in that one that much because I had not figured that out yet. And then I get to Savage Son, and I'm like, okay, this is what's going to happen. He's going to know that Ben was too close to her. And so it wasn't really connected because he would have hurt himself or killed himself had his hand come off the button. So I figured it out, but it took a little while to figure that out and bring it around. Because I'm like, how can I have these two characters reconcile and then go forward in a relationship if she really thinks that he was didn't care if she died or not? So it's all problem solving on the page, just like we did on the battlefield. It was aggressive and creative problem solving in Iraq and Afghanistan. Same thing on the page, just the consequences are a little less dire if I mess up, and I can come back and edit the next day.
Yeah. I was going to ask you this, but this is, I think maybe you've answered at least partially my question. Another thing that I've talked to a lot of thriller writers about is your style of writing, and in specifically in regard to the plot. So some guys have a detailed list of all the things they want to hit to get from point A to point Z or whatever the fuck, right? They're going through the full alphabet. And some of my buddies have told me that they're almost discovering the plot as they're writing. Like they write, they have this idea, I want this to happen, and then I'm figuring out B in between A and C. I'm figuring out how to get there as I'm writing it, and it's just like coming to me or whatever. It's part of my creative process. It sounds like, at least sometimes, you write something that's fucking savage, and then you go back on the other end and humanize it with some kind of detail.
Yeah, no, that is true. I know where I'm going. So I know how it's going to start. I know how it's going to end. I outline. I have specific chapters, the things that I know I want to hit within each part. Typically, there are 3 parts, not always. I've had some that are more than 3, but typically it's 3-part with a prologue and an epilogue to bookend. But I have an outline. But within that outline, there are parts that I don't know, or parts where I think, oh my gosh, how am I going to figure this out? How is James Reese going to get through this? And if I've spent that much time thinking about it, I don't even worry about it. I know that over the course of a year, as I write, I will figure this out. So I get an outline to a point where I'm comfortable. and then I dive in. So I like to know where I'm going, though. I like to know the direction that I'm going. And I think that's helped me to do that, to have a theme, to have a title. I've had good titles so far, and I've picked all my titles up to this point because I don't want to be typing away thinking, oh man, I've had good titles to this point. What if I don't think up a good one? I like to have one, even if it's a working title, and I know it's probably going to shift, but all my bandwidth needs to go into the story. All my heart and soul has to go into every word, and I don't want anything in my head thinking about anything else. I don't want any bandwidth going in any other direction, so I'm totally focused on the story.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, what about, so you mentioned the vengeance without restraint. Do you always have, so from my perspective, between creative shit and business shit, having a mission statement is really important, right? It's like at Black Rifle back in the day, I've mentioned this before, but it was, we serve coffee and culture to people who love America. That was our mission statement. You can always go back to that. No matter what part of the business you're in, is what I'm doing supporting this mission statement. Do you do that for every book? Do you have a Post-it note with like a single phrase on it? You're like, everything's got to support this.
Yep, exactly. I think that helps keep me on track because everything has to tie directly or, more importantly, indirectly back to that theme. And I think that's why my publisher and editor has not had huge edits for me, only just little questions, essentially, that make the book a little sharper for people who, especially, you don't know what a few of these military terms are. But yes, every time. So Revenge Without Constraint. Next one, True Believer, was a journey of violent redemption. So that guided that whole thing. Third one, like I talked about, was The Dark Side of Man through the dynamic of Hunter and Hunted with Savage Son. The other one, next one, Devil's Hand, was, hey, what has the enemy learned by watching us for all these years on the field of battle in Iraq and Afghanistan? If I was the enemy, if I was Iran, Russia, North Korea, super empowered individual, terrorist organization, what lessons would I have drawn from the American experience in Iraq and Afghanistan? And what would I have incorporated into my future battle plans? So that's more than a word or a sentence, but that guided all of The Devil's Hand. Then next, I wanted to write a sniper-centric novel of violent resolutions for In the Blood. And the trick with that one was, okay, how do I write a sniper-centric novel, but not come down to that final trope of two snipers on a hillside looking for each other, or in two buildings looking for each other? At the last second, they find each other at the same time. They both fire. One goes through the scope and kills the guy. Like, how do I avoid that, but still write a sniper-centric novel of violent resolutions? And so I figured that out in a pretty creative way. I loved how that one worked out. So each one has its own theme. And this one, Cry Havoc, that comes out here October 7th, it's brotherhood and betrayal. So I had that on my yellow sticky throughout the whole time that I'm writing, and it really helps guide the writing process for me. And sometimes that outline does change. Another spoiler alert: there's bullets say there's a character in True Believer, the second one. Just finished filming in Morocco and filmed this scene, and sometimes they're hard to film because someone's not going to make it, and you get to know this actor over the previous 7 months, and they're an awesome person, and you're like, oh, do they have to die, type of a thing. And in the outline for that book, this particular character lives in the outline, but I got to that part as I'm writing, and he had to die. Same thing happened, let's say, The Devil's Hand, but the opposite way. I have these two guys, two military contractors that are surveilling James Reese. For sure, he was going to kill these guys at the end or near the end. He was going to dispose of these guys. And I got to, because I put them in conversation with each other in this van, and I got to like them so much, I couldn't have them kill them. And so things like that happen each and every book as well.
Do you get emotional when there is a death, and especially with a character that you personally love? When you finish writing it, and you're like, oh shit, man, I got so invested in this guy as I was writing him, and now I have to kill him off, like you were saying. Does it bother you, or do you get emotional as the writer there, and do you need a moment afterwards?
I don't know if I need a moment, but I definitely get emotional, and that tells me I did the right thing, because then the reader is going to get emotional as well. Or maybe they didn't expect something because someone's background is so intricate and so interesting that there's no way that this author is going to kill this person off. There's so many things that could happen going forward, and then bam, done. In the case of True Believer, it's even more painful because his son has the same thing that our middle child has, or special needs, a mutation of the NR2F1 gene. And so now you have this wife, the special needs child, who does not have a husband anymore, and she accepts the body coming back to the United States. And there's a scene with her and James Reese, and we filmed that, and that was, even just casting was emotional, and filming it was emotional for everybody, not just me, but everybody on set. And in the book, it was emotional. In the show, it's emotional. It's going to be once we get through edits and get this thing out there. And so I do get emotional every time. But if I do, I know we're on the right track.
That's awesome. Yeah, because, as let's say a reader or just a watcher of these series, like a viewer, excuse me, we get emotional, and you always wonder from the writing perspective if there is that same raw emotion when you're doing it as well. Are you pumping it out so quickly that it seems, all right, well, on to the next thing? And I try to tell people, I'm like, no, man, if they really care about their work, chances are they really care about the characters.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm never going to rush something out to hit a deadline, much to my publisher's dismay. This one was supposed to come out in June. Like I said, it's coming out in October. But and it's not because I needed to work on it done to get it to a place. No, it just wasn't finished because of all this research and taking all this time, energy, and effort and caring enough about each and every character in there to make sure that their perspective was through that lens of their life experience up until 1968, whether it's a French doctor who was in Paris during World War II and what's he doing now in Saigon, what happened during those World War II and post and just after the war that made him want to leave Paris, leave France, go to Vietnam, set up shop first in Hanoi and then later in Saigon, and what made him want to work, another spoiler alert, work for a foreign intelligence service, I'll just say. So all of those things come into play with all of these backstories that just takes time, and I'm not going to rush it to get something out there and hit a deadline because I owe too much to the readers. I respect my readers too much to do that. And if I focus on the story and just get the best book out there I possibly can, the best product that I possibly can, which I've done each and every time, and I think I've improved along the way. That's always the goal, is to make the next book better than this one. And every book, I honestly feel I've done that, which makes me feel really good inside because that's my goal. So yeah, getting these out there regardless of timeline. Yeah, I'd like to make my deadlines, but more than that, I want the best product out there because once again, these people are trusting me with time that are never going to get back, and I sincerely appreciate that and take it very seriously.
I've got a question, and this is kind of a spoilery question. I don't know if I can ask it. I mean, if you haven't read the books, they've been out for a while. That's your fucking problem. So in the books, obviously, the reporter becomes a love interest over time. I don't know if that's going to happen in the series or not. It would be quite a different story in this regard if it had, because it's just so much, the plot from season 1 was so much different. But it was one of the devices you used to, I guess, reintegrate and rehumanize Reese over time. Part of it is Rape's family back in Montana. The other part of it is Katie, right? So I'm very curious to see. Don't obviously don't spoil anything, but I'm very curious to see how that happens because Chris is a great actor. And he also is the dude that Reese becomes again. Like in real life, he's the dude that Reese becomes again once he gets back into the States after book 2. So it's like, I'm really curious. I'm really looking forward to see on the screen how he gets reintegrated and rehumanized. Because part of it happens in Mozambique for sure, but then a lot of it happens later on as an effect. And that's probably the thing that, other than just watching savage shit, people getting fucked up, that thing that I'm looking most forward to is that character development for James.
Yeah, no, me too, because now, like I said, in True Believer, Katie's not really in there too much in the book. She's in it more in the show that's coming out whenever it comes out, probably next summer. So in it more, but really Savage Son's going to be the one where we find it, where we answer that question. And I'm not sure exactly how that's going to work out quite yet, but it's the show definitely took a different turn with the relationship. So I don't know, does it turn back to what I have in the books? Does it go a different direction? Not sure yet, but we'll find out as we get this writer's room together, hopefully, for Savage Son in the next year or so. So we shall see. I'm curious as well. But once again, it's one of those things like looking at that battle space. Okay, how do you adapt? You're telling the story through a different medium. How do we do this? And now we're doing it as a team because it's a writer's room and it's scripts. So I'm just as curious as you are.
Yeah, I can't wait,
man. Let's talk about the new one, Cry Havoc. It is out October 7th. And like you said, you missed the deadline, you failure. You fucking loser, Jack. I've never missed a deadline in my life. You fuck. I'm kidding.
I blew right by those things, and it was so like last summer. So not this one, but 2024. I was out filming in Budapest, and then went from Budapest to a little family vacation thing. And I was like, wow, I am in the worst shape of my life. Like, I pushed it as far as I could. I am been sprinting these last 7 years, writing all through the night, like all these all-nighters, just solely focused on writing these books, building this readership, and let myself. I went last. I for sure am now not so far down the list of priorities that I'm not even on it, essentially. So I'm like, oh, I gotta do something here. So got back in shape. And it took like a month and a half. And I think that's just realizing, hey, I don't need to do the same sorts of things I did in the SEAL teams in like age 25 at this age. But I can do these other things. And I got in probably the best shape of my life. And it was like, oh, wow. And then I get to January 1st and I realize I don't have a book yet. I'll stop. Bam. Back to the all-nighters. Back to the horrible nutrition. Back to just fuel by coffee to get this book done. And so I whizzed by deadline after deadline after deadline. But I am so happy with this final product that's coming out on October 7th. So it's a special one. It was inspired by 3 books really, and that's The Quiet American by Graham Greene. So that's mid-50s. The Tears of Autumn by Charles McCary, which is 1974, and The Honorable Schoolboy by John le Carré, which is 1977. And I haven't really seen anyone drop an espionage thriller into the heart of Saigon in this case, or Southeast Asia generally when you're talking about those books, since then. That's been a moon or two. And so that's what I wanted to do with this one, was drop an espionage thriller into the heart of Saigon in the bloodiest year of the Vietnam War, really at one of the heights of the Cold War, with all of these tensions, and without having to think about in every single chapter or sentence, does the person have an iPhone on them? Can they just call? What about satellites? What about tracking devices in not just Teslas, but almost every vehicle? What about all these credit card transactions? What about all the facial recognition technology and aliases and passports? And I didn't have to think of any of that. It could be all old school spycraft, tradecraft, without all of these things. Oh, is the guy wearing an Apple Watch? Is he wearing a Garmin? Like all of those things you have to think about when you're writing a contemporary thriller. Well, I didn't have to use those back then. It could all be old school tradecraft. So that was really cool. And then in doing this, what I thought was going to be fiction, as I continued to do the research on this, I think it ended up being more fact. And I have a author's note at the end of the books. I started doing those with my 4th book, Devil's Hand, where I talk about what was real, what was not, and what someone just read. And in this case, I kick things off in the first chapter, not the prologue, but the first chapter, with the taking of the USS Pueblo in January of 1968 off the coast of North Korea. And what did they get by getting the spy ship? What the most technologically advanced encryption of the day, and who did they share that with? The Soviets. And if the Soviets got that, what did they in turn decrypt during the Cold War, especially during this year, 1968, 69, 70, and onward? And I've started to realize that perhaps this was a lot closer to fact than to fiction. So that really kicks things off and draws Tom Reese into this web of conspiracy in the heart of Saigon in 68.
What I love about you personally, because I follow you on Instagram, is you're a student of film and you're a student of other authors. Just because I see your post every single day and references you make and all that other stuff, and I think you have to be in order to be as great as someone like you are, and especially in both worlds. Because yes, you could just write a book and not be in the writer's room for series and all that other stuff and just hand it off to people, but you do both because it appears as if over the years you've had this passion for both, not only films, but also other authors and other thrillers. And I see the books you post of things that you read, and I think that has really helped your career as far as everything that's happening to you right now. Because some authors get into it for selfish reasons, where I want to be famous, I want it to be a movie, I want to sell the rights, and I want to walk away from it. I don't think you can if you want it to be great. And with you, I can tell that you truly want to be great on a book-by-book basis.
Thank you. I always want to improve, but understanding the history of not just this industry, but any industry is so vitally important. Let's like understanding the history of warfare, understanding the lessons from, let's say, Vietnam, understanding the lessons from the Soviet experience in Afghanistan, 1979 to 1989, drawing the lessons from the Iran-Iraq War, drawing the lessons from flashpoints like Desert One, Grenada, Mogadishu. Like all of that becomes part of your experience that you can then lend to current problem sets and future problem sets, hopefully as wisdom. So coming at it from the fan perspective and being able to be in that writer's room or be on set and talk movies, talk history, understand the history of cinema, not just because you studied it, because you are a part of it, particularly late 70s up through today, being a fan of film, specifically action films, drama, espionage, and being able to reference all those things and speak the same language as other people who have that similar love on set is vitally important. And then in publishing, I'm always shocked at how many authors I come across who don't know the history of the genre. They don't know about The Most Dangerous Game. They don't know about Rogue Mail, 1939, on the eve of World War II, and what that did to the genre to move it forward. How Fleming moved it forward. How Le Carré moved it forward. How Ludlum moved it forward. How David Morrell does it with First Blood in 1972. How Clancy in turn does it. Like all of these different books and authors who add to this foundation that allow me to do what I'm doing today. So I always try to honor those guys, do most of my social posts, talk about them in the acknowledgments of the books, and just how thankful I am that they really gave me this life. And not just those guys, but all the nonfiction I read as well. And both fiction and non, I think, really helped me in the SEAL teams because I could put things in relative terms. As I'm doing push-ups on the beach in Hell Week and people are quitting in droves, guess what I'm thinking? I'm thinking, yeah, it's cold here, and yeah, everybody's yelling at me, and it's dark, and I'm on the verge of hypothermia, and everyone's quitting, and I know 80% of the people are going to quit at some point along the way. But guess what we're not doing right now? We're not waiting for our landing craft to get close enough to the shore where they can drop the ramp, and we're not going to run off into an open area between the beach and the bottom of these cliffs in Normandy, taking machine gun fire from elevated positions. Yeah, you know what? I can do a few more push-ups here because those guys fought and died to give me these options and opportunities and are allowing me to be here on this beach in Coronado, California and go through this, test myself to see if I have what it takes to make it through BUD/S and become a SEAL and be a valued member of a platoon and a team. So I thought it helps you put things in relative terms, as does fiction, because when you read fiction, you are experiencing the world through a character's eyes and you're going through that experience with them. And let's say Last of the Breed by Louis L'Amour. Stealth pilot shot down. It's I think it came out in 1987. I want to say 86, 87, that time frame. And he has Native American Indian heritage, and he's in this prison camp, and he escapes, and he's working his way across Siberia. And I am now, as a kid in, let's say, the 7th grade or whatever year that was, I'm experiencing that with him. Just like the other things that I'm reading, you're developing empathy, compassion, understanding, even though it's fiction, because you're experiencing these worlds through someone else's eyes. And when that goes away and you don't do that, I think you really lose something as a human being, as a citizen. So both the fiction and the non, I think, are so vital to developing a good, productive, kind, compassionate human being. And I'm just very fortunate that my mom was a librarian and I grew up surrounded by books and a love of reading that's never left me.
Yeah, I think, fiction's so important for our culture. Because we don't always know what we're capable of as a society or as individuals even. I reference this sometimes, but like the high jump in the Olympics from the early part of the 20th century or the 4-minute mile, there's all these like physical things that people are like, well, I mean, this is the limit of human capability. You can't go better or faster or higher than that. And then somebody does it, and then everybody starts doing it. It's like, oh shit, we were all kind of capable of this. And I think, larger than life fiction characters have that same kind of impact. Like, obviously we're not going to turn into superheroes or anything, but it does like put a worm in your brain. Like, what if I could do this or that? And I think, really good fiction characters have something going on there. And it's not just like capabilities necessarily. Sometimes it's about understanding other people or yourself better, or sometimes it reconnects you with your faith, depending on what it is. You mentioned Louis L'Amour. The other thing is that the way people consume content is always changing to some degree. It's changing pretty significantly right now. We're seeing it
even in books.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, for sure. So we're seeing it. What gets made and what doesn't is changing. you know, and it's kind of coming back a little bit now. Late night's dying. Streaming is obviously king, but even the way that people distribute streaming is different. Instead of just throwing the whole thing out there, we were talking about this earlier. They're spacing. They're like, you get 2 or 3 episodes on opening night, and then the rest is spaced out.
Well, he's back to week, same as it
well,
used
I think
to be on like HBO.
The first 2 episodes were out immediately, right? And then the rest have been week to week. 3, okay.
Yeah, first 3 dropped immediately, and then week to week. I think that's because people were getting like Prime Video for the 30-day free trial, binging a bunch of shows or whatever, and then not doing the Prime thing. So this way, they make you get I guess it's helpful. I mean, they have the data.
I don't mind it. I like it.
No,
like,
I think
it
it's
spaces
better.
it out. So do I.
I think it's better for the audience too. And then Audible is huge right now. I don't know what your splits are. But they got to be heavier on the Audible side now. Most everybody, I mean, some people are like 90-10 on the Audible side, on the audiobook side, which is interesting because, one, you've got Ray Porter, who's a fucking legend. He's really good at this. And then 2, people think that this is a new thing, but the Lord of the Rings and the Chronicles of Narnia and all the Louis L'Amour books, the way that these authors got truly famous was serializing their content on AM radio, right? A lot of people first heard Louis L'Amour, and then you start seeing like on AM radio, chapter at a time, or Chronicles of Narnia was chapter at a time. Same thing with, and by the way, C.S. Lewis and what's his name? Why can't I think of Tolkien were like really good friends, right? So they had this idea together to put their content on AM radio and let people hear a chapter at a time, almost as an advertisement, but also as what entertainment really is, in my opinion. I want to get your thoughts on this, Jack. The way that we've described our culture over time and held it, you know, as something that transfers from one generation to the next, began with some old dude around a campfire telling stories about our ancestors, right? And then it, you know, progressed into reading books, and then obviously the radio and television and so on. And I think this this style of production and putting stuff out into the universe like this is important for people. That's why I was talking about how fiction is so important, because in 2 ways. One, it's like a what could, here are our cultural principles. Here's what could be based on those, right? And then you sit around and everybody talks about it, and it's the way that we develop new ideas, but also it's the way that we carry, you know, core principles into the future. It's not just like people read the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution and the Preceptor and things like this, and they understand that, but putting it into fiction is a practical example of that social idea. That's what it is, right? It's like a practical example of a math problem, basically, but for social ideas. And then we get to consume all this stuff, and it carries with us over time. I'm curious about 2 things. One, your thoughts on that generally, and then about the way that content's being created and published now is changing a little bit, but it's not changing. It's going back to the way that it once was, kind of.
So I do put the prologue is out there on my podcast on YouTube and Apple and Spotify. So I do drop those kind of like those guys did with radio. So that's out there. Chapter 1 I think is out there now, and I think chapter 2, maybe even 3, are going to get dropped here over the coming weeks as a kind of a hook, or where people can test it out and say, I like this or I don't, or whatever. So it's out there for people to listen to right now. At least those for the prologue and chapter 1 and maybe chapter 2. I think that's this week. But that's out there. And then storytelling wise, yeah, I mean, the original stories are told around a fire to preserve the lessons of the hunt and of battle, so that the people who are taking in that story can pass them on to the next generation to keep those families, the tribe, the community alive. So and it's interesting, I very intentionally incorporate fire into all the books, whether people recognize it or not, because there's something inside us where fire draws you to the story, because in our DNA, we're all here today because we had somewhere in our lineage, we had someone who was good at the fighting and good at the hunting. That is the only reason all of us are here today. So those are those stories. They're passed down orally to these next generations, and then they're written down, and then it expands going forward from there. But fire is a very intentionally woven into all the novels, whether people realize it or not, as part of the journey that James Reese is on, and now his dad Tom Reese in this current one, Cry Havoc. So, but yeah, that medium, when we're talking about the medium for storytelling and audiobooks, fastest growing segment of publishing.
Yes.
And I think a lot of that is because they're hearing about something on a podcast. And so it's very natural then to listen to the thing that they just heard about through that same medium. And I'm going to test this out. I heard about it on a podcast. Now I'm going to hear it by clicking on Audible or wherever they're Apple Books, wherever they're getting their audiobooks. So fastest growing segment of publishing. It is a very strong segment of my sales. And a ton of that is due to Ray Porter, who I chose for his voice because I'm not an audio person. I like to have a physical book. And I chose Ray Porter because originally Simon & Schuster chose somebody for me, or said, hey, what do you think about this guy? And this is a couple months before the book came out in 2018. Haven't sold one book yet. And I'm like, oh, I listened to it. I'm like, oh, I don't think this is the right guy. Can I choose somebody else? And they said, yeah, just let us know by the end of the day. And in publishing, they take their weekends very seriously. And this is like noon on a Friday. So I go to Audible and I start listening to those little samples. And I'm listening. And then I hear Ray Porter. And I think it was first through some nonfiction book. And then I start listening to the other ones. And I thought, oh, this guy's pretty good. I think this is the right guy. And I asked Simon & Schuster, and they say, well, we can ask him. And I had no idea at the time that Ray Porter was like at the pinnacle of the narration pyramid and is the person when it comes to narration. I had no idea. And I just chose him for his voice. And he said yes. And now we're dear friends. And he's got a Lexus that he's outfitted like a Land Cruiser for overlanding. And I gave him a tomahawk. He gave me a knife that has the waveform of the first sentences that he read, the first sentence that he read for Terminal List on there. And just an amazing guy and a dear friend now. So yeah, audiobooks. Maybe that's the gateway drug to get people back to actual reading. I don't know.
Yeah,
it may be. And what is the split right now? Last I heard from my agent, it was 80-20. And it feels like that, like you said, that number is growing where everything is going to Audible. And I don't know if you noticed this, but like, let's take Cry Havoc, for example. I'm on Amazon, which is obviously the best and fastest way to get this. And that's a plug for all of your shows and your books, okay? Because 94% of sales come from Amazon. You're not getting them from brick and mortars, but the Audible is always listed first on everyone's book now before the hardback, paperback, and everything else. I'm a guy like you where I love a physical copy in my hands. However, I know the audience has shifted in that. What is the actual split you are seeing on your side versus audio listeners and then hard and paperback books?
I do not know because I never pay attention to the numbers and the business side of it. I just feel like that's one, it's not me. They're just numbers. I have nothing to compare it to except for last year. So as long as Simon & Schuster is happy and the trajectory is up, like that's all I care about. And my agent can figure out all the exact numbers. I just know they're good. So maybe I'll dive in a little more if ever they're not good to try to draw some lessons, but I don't want to get caught up in waiting for a residual check or wondering how many sold this week or that. No, all my energy and effort has to go into the product, building the book out, building the scripts out, and then doing the other things that you have to do to build and expand our readership. So I don't want any of that wasted on looking at numbers. I just gotta ask my wife, hey, can I buy a new Land Cruiser? And she says, yes, I know we're doing okay.
The Minister of Finance, I believe we call that. Yeah.
Yeah, because here's why is one time an agent told me, he's like, hey, these audio numbers are growing. You've got to start writing more dialogue rather than description. It's more interesting to hear on audiobooks and everything else. Also, publishers love it because it's an MP3. So they don't have to make a hardback anymore. They don't have to make a paperback. So they don't have to waste trees and shipping through the mail, all that other stuff, every cost that comes along with it. They would rather somebody just download an MP3 that just sits there because there is no cost once it's done. And I think that's why they're pushing it harder and harder these days. But also, everybody's on the go and everybody's listening to podcasts. I know, Dan, you're heavy into audiobooks. My wife is as well, whereas I'm still a traditional, I want the hard copy in my hand and I want to sit down and read it and feel like I'm a part of something. So, yeah, you don't think about any of that at all?
Experience. No, I don't think about any of that stuff. I just know that they're good. The numbers are good. But no one ever gives me any advice either. My agent, my publisher, they never say, write more dialogue, write less, do this, do that. Zero input. And I didn't know it was going to be like that when I started. I thought there'd probably be because my only kind of vision of an agent is what I saw in Californication and what's the other one with the Ari?
Entourage.
Those shows. Like,
Entourage, yeah.
Yeah. That's right. So like my own, that's what I pictured an agent was, and that's not my agent.
That's a
no one gives
miracle,
me
Jack. You know that, right?
I don't know because it's my only experience. I've never had another agent or another publisher. So they leave me completely alone, which is kind of interesting to think because, you know, what if I spent a year writing a book and send it in and it's awful? And they're like, wait, we didn't know you were doing this. Why didn't you tell us you were going this direction? Like there's nothing. They don't even ask which direction I'm going, and certainly no advice. So, which is good because that doesn't enter my calculus. So I'm not like, my agent said I should do this. I really don't want to, but she's really nice. And what if I don't, and then it doesn't work or shit. So I never think about any of that, and it doesn't play into the calculus. So it doesn't waste any bandwidth. And I love that. I feel I have complete creative freedom on that side of the house. And then on the other side of the house, like I said, team effort. So that's team television, which is a totally different thing. But best idea wins on that side of the house. But I love that no one's giving me any advice. That's cool because that keeps it pure. And I know that these books are the best that I could do at any given time. I know if I went back to Terminalist or True Believer or Savage Son, I could make them better if I wrote them today. But those were the best that I could do at the time. And as long as that's always the case, then I'm gonna be very happy.
It's unbelievably rare. Don't believe that I've ever heard that before. And congratulations, because you're right. If you don't have somebody giving you notes, you can continue on your creativity, and if it's a hit, it's a hit. If it's a failure, it's a failure, and it is totally on you versus somebody else, muddying the waters with their hands. A bunch of listeners have asked us, and I want to hop into this with you in regards to AI and specifically how big these series have become for you. A lot of people have asked, like, would you consider getting Chris Pratt's and Taylor Kitsch and all these other guys to come back in and license their, AI voices, so then you could do audiobooks with the people that are actually starring in the TV shows in that. And I said, you know what? I'll ask them. And so, yeah, I'm doing something similar right now, and I'm shocked about it. And the licenses exist. It is out there. And then essentially you could have multiple versions of all of these books with the people who are actually starring in the shows. And I wonder what that experience would be like.
That's incredible. I've never thought of that until you just brought it up right now. That is wow. That's incredible. I'm going to spend some time thinking about that. That's a whole different thing. That'll be a whole different listening experience, like a drama, essentially, like a stage type drama, but through an audio an audio type medium. That's amazing. Yeah, no, I never thought about that till just now, but I'm going to spend now a little time thinking about it. And AI in general, like that was it the fifth book, In the Blood, is where I introduced this character Alice. So this AI quantum computer thing, and that was well before ChatGPT became part of the lexicon, which is insane. And yeah, the AI thing, I wonder how it's going to change publishing, how it's going to change film, television, and I just don't know. But this is probably not the best time to step into publishing. 1975, 85, 95, probably way more ideal. Authors who get a piece of the back end on a film. Think about Grisham and Crichton through the 90s. It was like Crichton, Grisham, with the biggest directors and actors of the day, and essentially they're just throwing the book over the border into California and getting the cash and going back to writing the next book. And so it's remarkable how that landscape has changed. It's not that way today, for anybody who's wondering. So it's probably I wouldn't say the most difficult, but a more complex time to step into this space, especially when you're dealing with all of these distractions out there that are meant to keep people from buying your book and reading.
Yeah, because with the AI thing, and I just tested this out the other night, all you have to do is read maybe 5 or 6 sentences, and it'll know what your voice is and then match it and everything else, and then you can go back in and then have it read the dialogue. And it looks like a volume knob on the side, but you can speed up the dialogue, you can slow the dialogue down, you can add laughter, you can add coughing, you can add sighs, you can add all the things that are literally written in your book with these exact characters from your TV shows, and then re-release those audiobooks on top of it. And man, that would be wild to hear, because I'm so used to watching the series that I can't not hear it as Chris Pratt, right? So if I was able to go back and then listen to that audiobook like that, that would be a whole nother experience And I think it'd be really cool to explore. And I know those guys would be down, obviously. They all love you, and they post about you all the time. So, yeah, something cool to think about that's for the future.
Yeah, that's crazy. I never thought about that. So I will be discussing that with my agent post haste.
Yes, because the other one is, this is going to sound eerie, and forgive me, but is dead actors. So, Dan and I were talking about this the other day on another show where it's one of my favorite actors of all time that I didn't get to work with, and the estate is licensing his voice, so it's going to be in the new audiobook. And going back and forth, I had a 4-hour conversation essentially. I'm going to use air quotes on that because none of it's real. But with this actor, and God, it really enhanced the book. And knowing you and your Instagram and all that other stuff so well, like I saw your post about Robert Redford the other day. If you could get a Robert Redford in one of these books, or somebody from back in the day that you really enjoyed, who would it be?
Wow, I don't know. It feels so eerie to even think about, especially because I've never thought about it before. So right now it just feels, eerie and not quite right. But then you think about it for another few seconds, and you're like, oh, but maybe it keeps this person alive. But then you don't get their input whether they would have wanted to do that or not. So I don't know. I really don't know because I've never thought about it before.
I bought the rights, so the money goes to their estate, and so they're all.
I wonder if they would have let's say Robert Redford, maybe he wouldn't want to be part of my project, but he's not here anymore. But for somebody's estate has licensed his voice to my project. I'll never know if he wanted to be part of it or not. But obviously people that are in control of these estates and, these custodians of these estates are, that's their responsibility now. Mm-hmm. So, they're making the decisions, but it is a little eerie. And so I don't know. I don't have a good question for you. It's going to keep me up all night now thinking about it, though.
I'll tell you off air who I use, and it'll shock in all your mind where you're like, no way, dude. When we get off air. Wow. And then Can I talk about something that's one of the books you wrote before? I would love to see made into a movie. It is currently the editor's pick on Amazon. I don't know if you know that, but it's Beirut, The Targeted Beirut. Is there any possibility that that's going to become a movie one day?
There is, but you never know. There is a feature side, and then there's a documentary side, and pitching both. We'll see. It's interesting that a lot of the executives are younger, and Beirut 1983 is essentially ancient history to a lot of them. So that it's very interesting when you're pitching something like this. But there's a possibility for it. I have a documentary. My first documentary should come out next year. Hasn't been announced yet, but it's more generally terrorism, and then a specific terrorist that it follows that really paves the way and the groundwork for the spectacular attacks that we're going to see in the 90s and early 2000s and onward. So my first one, and filmed it a couple weeks ago in DC. It was quite the experience filming a documentary, especially since I thought it was going to be like a Jack Carr Presents, which I thought meant I walk in, I kind of tee it up, and maybe I do something at the end. But it became instead Jack Carr going, investigating, talking to people who had touch points with these investigations, like this whole thing. So it's I'll see when it gets through edits, but it's from the sizzle reel and everything else that I've seen, it looks pretty good. So point being, for the targeted series, I'm working on the next one right now, and that hasn't been announced yet either, but that should come out in 2026 or 2027. So I'm going to build up the nonfiction side through the targeted series, looking at specific terrorist events, trying to preserve those lessons. So at least they're there, whether anyone decides to apply them going forward as wisdom or not, that's out of my hands, but at least I can do is tell these stories, capture the lessons, do it in a thoughtful way, in a professional way. Work with James M. Scott, who's an incredible guy, Pulitzer Prize finalist, amazing historian. I learned so much by working with him on these books. So we'll see. Will they end up as features or documentaries? So the feature is more like a based on actual events, like a story within the story type of a thing, because you're telling, it's a movie, and then the documentary obviously all fact based. So it's with no liberties taken. So we'll see. We'll see.
What about you, Dan? What's something that you'd like to see if Jack's hit the screen out there?
I mean, yeah, that a dramatization of the Beirut story would be interesting. More entertaining for sure, but I think also interesting to bring into better focus some of the intelligence and military decisions we've made recently, right? Like dropping a switchblade on Soleimani's forehead, for example.
Yes.
Soleimani was one of the architects of the 83 Beirut bombing. He's also one of the guys, well, not architects, not the right word, but he was involved in that back in the day. And then moving forward, as he became like more powerful in Iran, he was part of like uniting Sunni and Shia against the West in a bunch of different cases. This dude is responsible for a lot of dead U.S. people, right? Including like feeding EFPs over the Iranian border into Iraq when we were deployed there and all kinds of other shit. And, I remember there being some hubbub about extrajudicial killing of Soleimani. He's the leader of a military unit in an adversarial country. You just can't fucking smoke that dude. It's like, well, if you knew a little bit more about his history, and some people, to Jack's point, like it on the documentary side, some people like it on the dramatization side. There's good documentaries about Israel's response to the Munich terrorist attack, right? And but the movie Munich, which took some artistic liberties as you have to put it on the screen, was also fucking great, right? And it's like, oh, this is who we're dealing with. You know what I mean? I think that shit's important. I think it's important to show who we're dealing with because people, to Jack's point, it's ancient history. People forget. Like, this isn't new. We didn't cause this shit. You know what I mean? Like there's and we certainly there's some blame to go around. We do dumb foreign policy stuff sometimes, but I think it's really important for people, as I mentioned before with fiction, the storytelling, and Jack mentioned it as well, about not memory holding this stuff and pushing the lessons learned into the future so people fucking know when something happens why it happened. I think that's a really important thing.
I do too. And actually, I was talking about this about me, Dan, and Jared Taylor. We're talking about this the other day. I think there needs to be a show about this, especially about the important events from a military perspective, and hosted by somebody who actually has the knowledge and the background and all that other stuff. Would that be something you're interested in? Where you hosted a series of these, because you're great on camera. And you're fantastic with an audience and able to talk to people. I remember when we did that live event with you at Barnes & Noble, you really can capture an audience yourself, even though you're not an actor. I would love to see you host a series like that.
Whoa. He's been murdered on screen.
He's been murdered on screen. I understand that.
And will be murdered again, I'm told, from time to time.
Yeah. I'm talking as a host where it's your show front to back. And I think you'd be awesome at it, dude. I really do.
Well, thank you. I mean, I'm not so sure, but thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, there's a reason I'm a writer, not a public speaker, or not a host, or any of those things. But this first documentary that'll come out next summer, I believe, or maybe end of the summer, early fall next year. Then we'll know. Because I'm hosting that show. So we'll see if it's any good. Maybe there's some other things in the future. They already asked me to do some other things with this production company that put this together, and should be coming out on. I think it's going to come out on Fox Nation, I believe. But there's a middle production company that takes care of all the nuts and bolts, putting it all together. And then I guess they license it to Fox Nation or something. But we'll see if it's any good. Maybe there's some more, but. Yeah, they asked me to do another one that's would be really interesting, but at the same time, there are so many projects and it takes so long to write a book, and I've got to start hitting these deadlines. So we'll see. There's some efficiencies I need to put in place that will allow me to do a little more, I think, but not there quite yet.
I understand, and we'll let you get back to writing here. Cry Havoc comes out October 7th on all formats. Amazon's the easiest. It gets delivered right to your house. And then obviously all these pre-sales right now count towards the opening week of the New York Times bestseller list. So please pre-order this book. That way, when it comes out, I know I've said this in the past in the show, but when it comes out that opening week, all those numbers count. On the second week, it resets. So you have to hit those same numbers again. First week out of the gates is the best way to do it. I think you've got another hit on your hands. Now's the point in the show we get to the Drinkin' Bro of the Week, where that is somebody who has inspired you or helps you become the person you are today. Who'd you like to give the Drinkin' Bro of the Week to?
Oh my goodness! I mean, it sounds crazy to say this. So if it was just this past week, I'd be talking about David DiGilio and Chris Pratt and Jared Shaw, that we're all just down there in Morocco together. Pulled an all-nighter together after rap and talking about the future till about 7 a.m. So it'd be them. But when you talk about more generally, and it sounds, because you threw that in at the end, like who made you who you are today. I'll throw out to my grandmother, who's no longer with us, because we used to. I mean, she was such an instrumental part of raising me, instilling me these values, taking me to these movies that we talked about when I was way too young, taking me to see the faces melt off in Raiders of the Lost Ark when I should not have been seeing that in whatever 1980, 81, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, War Games, Blade Runner when I was certainly too young for Blade Runner, and then trading these novels back and forth, these paperbacks, these Nelson DeMille's and David Morrell's, and I still have her name written in a lot of those paperbacks that I would read during the summers of the school year in the 80s, and they're treasured possessions of mine. And I just wish I had had more time with her, one more dinner with her, one more lunch with her, one more breakfast with her, one more time hanging out together at the cabin, sitting in chairs, reading books together. So I will throw it out to my grandmother.
Did she ever get to see any of this crazy success?
No, she passed away while I was still in the military. So back in 2008, she passed away. So didn't get to see that, but she knew what I was going to do. She was well aware that I was going to write when I got out of the military. So she knew the path I was on.
That's awesome. Well, Jack, congratulations on all the success. You haven't changed. The books keep getting better. The series keep getting better, and you're only getting better as a storyteller. And we look forward to everything coming out in the future, man. For real.
Oh, I appreciate that so much. And it was so much fun when we did that event at Barnes & Noble. Always great to see you guys. Always great to talk to you. And thanks for all you do as well. And sincerely appreciate all the support. It means a lot.
Absolutely. Love you, buddy. Appreciate you guys tuning in on a day in and day out basis. Go to Spotify. We're sign a video deal. This video will be on Spotify as well. Then we'll rate it a 5-star, obviously, when you're over there. And then head on over to iTunes, rate the show a 5-star, and leave a quick review. Yes, that's all the advertisers care about. Unfortunately, once we get past 10,000 reviews, I will shut up forever. For Jack Carr, D'Anthony Hollaway, I'm Ross Patterson. This is the Drinkin' Bros Podcast. Good night, everyone.